Phyllis Griffiths here live from Montreal with special guest Myrtle Cook. Hi Myrtle, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Myrtle Cook. I was born and raised in Toronto and then moved to Montreal in 1929 in determination to develop another branch of the Canadian Ladies Athletic Club.
Awesome. Would you be able to give us a little bit of background on your track and field career?
Yep. I won my first championship in high school, and after graduation I joined the YMYWCA and also the Toronto Ladies Club. I then competed in the 400-meter relay race and was a member of the Canadian team who traveled to England in 1925. And there we competed against French and English relay teams. About a year later, I joined the Canadian Ladies Athletic Club as both an athlete and a coach, and then traveled to New York and won the indoor sprint title in the 100-meter. And there I set a new women's 100-meter record at 12 seconds flat. I was also the captain of the 1928 Amsterdam Olympic Games, but I had two false starts in my race, which ended up in disqualification. But also in those Olympic Games, I was the anchor for the women's relay race, which we ended up winning gold and setting a world record. And there my team was called the Matchless Six.
So next question, what would a typical competition attire look like for you, and when would you find time to train?
A typical competition attire would be a singlet and bloomers and running shoes. The time I typically ran would be before and after work, but my teammates and I actually never ran together until the Amsterdam meet because our lives and our busy schedules just never ended up matching, so that was the first time we ran together.
What were the three biggest developmental obstacles you faced as a female athlete?
The three biggest developmental obstacles were definitely lack of facilities and coaches, and I believe this came from the many negative societal attitudes and obstacles that were put towards and put against women competing in sport, especially at the elite level.
Right. After the 1928 Olympics, how did that alter the way people viewed women in sport?
So after that, the citizens of Toronto, Montreal really started to recognize and respect women as athletes. Fair. And being the Matchless Six, it had a huge welcome coming back with over 300,000 people, packed Toronto's Union Station and Front Street supporting us as athletes and females.
I was just wondering what were some of the challenges you face as a female athlete, like things like proper organization, funding, or institution, like your facilities, where you train, things like that.
Being a female athlete came with many challenges and obstacles. Since men's sports and athletics took over the spotlight, women competing in athletics were looked down upon and carried a negative stigma associated with females participating in sport. So therefore, there's not many organizations or clubs that were developed for females and made for females, and it was difficult for females to enter the sport world, thus resulting in zero funding for females in sport.
So, Myrtle, your endorsements to the Montreal organizations was felt almost immediately after you moved there. What kinds of changes were seen, and how did this impact women beyond high school?
Well, I made it my mission to remind young women that in order to compete in sanctioned amateur sporting events, they had to be good standing members of the Women's Amateur Athletic Federation of Canada, and the amateur advocacy role became very important because it made Quebec women eligible for competitions in which they previously would have been denied entry to. Also, big organizations like the Caledonia Society and the Montreal Amateur Athletics Association, who have strictly supported male sports, began to support female sports. So the merging of female sports in a male-dominated environment was a major accomplishment in female sports in Canada. I wanted my column to serve as a channel of communication for aspiring athletes. I used my writing and journalism abilities to deflate any negative myths of those that oppose women's sports. The endorsements actually led to 23 new basketball teams formed out of high school. And I always encourage graduates of high school to form and join clubs in order to constitute the development of female sports. I went to multiple high school athletic meets and competitions to support and recruit young female athletes.
Could you now give us a comparison between your writing styles and the well-known male journalists like Ted Reeves or Lou Marsh?
Yeah, their style was more meant for entertainment and feeding the male appetite for athletes and the spectators who enjoyed an already well-developed system and network, where women were more concerned about early development of women's sports in Canada. My column was more instrumental for developing a cohesive female community in the women's sport, like in the Montreal Daily Star. Competitive athletes via recruiting women, informing them on events, championing their performances, and encouraging a more widespread development of women's clubs and all-around women involvement in competitive sport.
So just one last little question here. One female journalist to another. What are your thoughts on the perception of female journalists? Do you think there should be more of us? Do you think we should be writing in more certain way? Any thoughts?
I believe there definitely should be more female journalists for sure. I think providing their thoughts and their opinions, since men are currently in the hierarchy of journalism, especially in sport and journalism, there should be more women evolving in this community, and so that they can base their thoughts and opinions.
Perfect. Thank you for your time,
Thank
Myrtle.
you for having me.